In a dimly lit parking lot outside a gas station, Sienna Clark stared down at 8 crumpled bills clutched in her palm. $8. Everything she had left. Money meant for her daughter's morning meal. That's when she heard it, a man struggling to breathe. A huge Hells Angel biker lay crumpled beside his motorcycle, gripping his chest. His skin turned ashen. Death was coming for him right there on the concrete, and nobody else was around. "Stay out of it," the station clerk yelled from the entrance. "Those people are bad news." Sienna glanced at the dying stranger, then back at her $8. Tomorrow morning Maya would be hungry, but walking away felt impossible. She rushed into the store, spent every cent on aspirin and bottled water, then dropped to her knees beside him. She saved his life without knowing his identity. Sienna had no clue that decision would transform everything. Because the following morning, 100 motorcycles appeared on her block. Let me rewind to the day before that parking lot encounter, before her world shifted. Sienna's alarm buzzed at 5:00 a.m., same as every morning. She pulled herself from bed in the cramped apartment she shared with 6-year-old Maya. The space was tight, worn down, in a neighborhood past its prime, but it was theirs. Walking into the kitchen, she opened the cupboard. Almost no cereal remained, just half a milk carton in the refrigerator. She poured what little there was into Maya's bowl, stretching it as much as possible. Maya emerged in her nightclothes, rubbing sleepy eyes. "Morning, Mummy." "Morning, sweetheart." Sienna kissed her head and placed the bowl down. She skipped making her own. Not enough remained. This was her reality now. Counting every cent, rationing every bite, hoping nothing unexpected happened because there was zero cushion, zero backup, nothing to catch her fall. Sienna juggled 2 jobs. Mornings at the laundromat, folding other people's clothing for $11 hourly. Evenings at a diner, serving truckers and night owls, hustling for tips that sometimes totaled $20, sometimes far less. 3 weeks earlier, her vehicle died. Repairs were beyond her budget. Now she walked everywhere, miles to work, miles back home in beat-up sneakers with a hole in the left sole. Bills never stopped coming. Rent was due in 3 days. She was $150 short. The landlord had already warned her about eviction once. Maya's asthma inhaler needed refilling, $60 she couldn't spare. An overdue electricity notice clung to the refrigerator door. Still, Sienna never complained. Long ago, she'd learned complaining didn't pay bills. Her grandmother raised her with one fundamental principle. Kindness costs nothing, baby, and sometimes it's all we got to give. So Sienna smiled at coworkers even when exhaustion consumed her. She asked customers about their days even when her feet ached beyond bearing. She kept a small journal beside her bed where she noted 3 grateful things nightly, regardless of how brutal the day had been. That Tuesday unfolded like any other. She walked Maya to the neighbor's place before school, then headed to the laundromat. 8 hours of folding clothes, her mind running on autopilot. Jeans, towels, bed sheets, endless repetition. At 2 p.m., she clocked out and walked to the diner. Her shift started at 3, but she preferred arriving early, grabbing coffee, sitting in a rear booth, just breathing for a moment. Linda, her colleague, a warm older woman who'd worked the diner for 20 years, slid into the booth opposite her. "You look worn out, honey." "Always am," Sienna replied with a faint smile. "You're working yourself into the ground for that child." "She's worth every bit of it." Linda patted her hand. "I know she is, but take care of yourself too. You hear?" Sienna nodded, though both knew that luxury didn't exist for her. Her evening shift kept her busy. Truckers, some families, teenagers ordering late-night fries. She smiled, wrote down orders, refilled coffee, stayed moving. By 10 p.m. when she finished, her tips came to $23. She sat in the back counting cash on the table. 23 in tips, plus the $8.47 remaining from yesterday, $31.47 total. She needed bus fare for tomorrow, 47 cents. That left $31. She tucked 23 away for rent. $8 remained for Maya's breakfast, and maybe something small for tomorrow's dinner. $8. She folded the bills carefully and slipped them into her pocket. Then she began the 2-mile walk home. Late, streets quiet. Sienna was exhausted, but she kept her head high and kept walking. She decided to cut through the gas station lot on her route. A restroom there, she needed to stop. That's when everything shifted. That's when she heard the man gasping. And in that instant, Sienna Clark faced a choice. A choice that would cost everything she possessed. A choice that would rescue a life. A choice that would reveal her true character when nobody watched. She had zero idea this single decision would alter her existence forever. Sienna pushed through the restroom door and stepped back into the parking area. Overhead fluorescent lights flickered and hummed. Just past 11 p.m., the place sat nearly empty. Then she spotted him. A man massive, probably 6'3", thick gray beard, arms covered in ink, leaned against a chrome motorcycle beneath one of the lights. He wore a black leather vest plastered with patches, Hell's Angels. Even from a distance, Sienna recognized the skull emblem. She'd heard tales about men like him. Everyone had. Dangerous, criminal, keep away. She started toward the street, minding her business. Then the man stumbled. His hand flew to his chest. His face twisted in agony. He dropped to one knee, wheezing. Sienna froze. The man collapsed onto the pavement, flat on his back. His breathing came in short, frantic gasps. His lips turned blue. She stood paralyzed. Every instinct screamed at her to keep moving. This wasn't her concern. She had Maya to consider. Her own life held enough troubles. But then she heard it, a sound that chilled her blood. The man stopped breathing. His chest went still. "Hey!" Sienna shouted toward the station. "Hey! Somebody call 911!" The attendant, a white guy in his 30s, stepped outside with a cigarette dangling from his mouth. He glanced at the man on the ground, then at Sienna. "Lady, you crazy? That's a Hell's Angel. Leave him be. He's probably high on something." "He's having a heart attack," Sienna said, her voice rising. The attendant shrugged. "Not our problem. Those guys mean nothing but trouble. Trust me, you don't want involved." An older man, maybe 60, white, wearing a trucker cap, walked from the store carrying chips. He saw the scene and shook his head. He approached Sienna and gently gripped her arm. "Miss, listen, don't get involved. People like that, they're dangerous. You've got a kid, don't you? I can tell. Just walk away." Sienna pulled her arm free. "A man is dying." The trucker shook his head again, muttered something under his breath, and walked to his vehicle. He drove off without looking back. Sienna stood alone in the lot. The attendant retreated inside, leaving her with the dying stranger. She looked down at him. His chest remained motionless. His face had turned gray. She thought about her grandmother. Years back, her grandmother collapsed on a city sidewalk. A stroke. People passed by. Nobody stopped. By the time someone finally called for help, it was too late. Sienna had been 12 years old when that phone call came. She never forgot. She dropped to her knees beside the man. Sir, can you hear me?" His eyes fluttered open barely. He tried speaking, but only a wheeze emerged. "Heart meds. Forgot." Sienna pulled out her phone. 1 bar of signal, 10% battery. She dialed 911. The call dropped. Damn it. She stood and rushed toward the gas station. She burst through the entrance. "Call an ambulance right now. He's dying out there." The attendant rolled his eyes but picked up the phone behind the counter. Sienna didn't wait. She scanned the shelves, grabbed aspirin and water. She ran to the counter and slammed them down. "How much?" $6.50. She pulled the $8 from her pocket, Maya's breakfast money, and handed it over. The attendant gave her $1.50 in change. She didn't wait for a receipt. She ran back outside. The man still lay on the ground, barely conscious. Sienna twisted off the aspirin cap, shook 2 tablets into her hand, opened the water, and knelt beside him. Hey, look at me. I need you to chew these. Can you do that?" He opened his mouth weakly. She placed the tablets on his tongue. "Chew. Come on." He chewed slowly, wincing. She held the water bottle to his lips, and he took a small sip. "Help is coming," she said, her hand on his shoulder. "You're going to be okay. Just stay with me." His hand reached up and grabbed hers. His grip was weak, but present. "What's your name?" he whispered, his voice barely audible. Sienna Clark." "Sienna?" he coughed. You saved my life." "Not yet, but I'm trying." In the distance, sirens wailed. They grew closer. Then, suddenly, another motorcycle roared into the lot. A younger guy, maybe 30, also wearing a vest, jumped off and sprinted over. "Hawk! Oh my God, Hawk!" He dropped to his knees on the other side of the man. He looked at Sienna, eyes wide with shock. You helped him? He needed help," Sienna said simply. The younger guy stared at her like she'd accomplished something impossible. "Most people cross the street when they see us." Sienna didn't respond. She just kept her hand on Hawk's shoulder until the ambulance pulled into the lot. Paramedics rushed over with a stretcher and equipment. One looked at Sienna. "Did you give him aspirin?" "Yes, 2 tablets maybe 3 minutes ago." The paramedic nodded. "Smart move. You probably just saved his life." They loaded Hawk onto the stretcher. He reached out and grabbed Sienna's wrist one more time, his eyes locked on hers. "Tell them Hawk sent you." She had no clue what that meant. The younger guy stood as the ambulance doors closed. He walked over to Sienna, pulled a business card from his wallet, and handed it over. Plain white, with just a phone number and a small logo, a crown with wings. "My name's Cole," he said. "Hawk's going to want to thank you. Please call this number tomorrow." Sienna took the card, her hands trembling. She looked at the logo, then back at Cole. "Who is he?" she asked. Cole smiled, but something heavy lingered in his expression. "Someone important. Someone who doesn't forget kindness." The ambulance pulled away, sirens blaring. The gas station attendant stood in the doorway, arms crossed, shaking his head. Sienna stood alone in the parking lot with $1.50 in her pocket and no idea what she'd just done. She walked home in the dark, replaying everything. The attendant's words echoed in her mind. Those guys mean nothing but trouble. But all she'd seen was a man who needed help. Had she made a mistake? She didn't know yet, but she was about to find out. The paramedics worked quickly. One placed an oxygen mask over Hawk's face, while the other checked his vitals. Sienna stepped back, her hands still shaking from the adrenaline. Cole paced frantically, running his hands through his hair. He looked terrified. "Is he going to be okay?" he asked the paramedics. "We got him stable," one replied. "But if this lady hadn't given him aspirin when she did, we'd be having a very different conversation right now." Cole turned to Sienna. His eyes were red. "You don't understand, Hawk. He's not just anybody. He's everything to us." Sienna didn't know what to say. "I just did what anyone would do." "No." Cole shook his head firmly. "Most people would have walked away, especially from someone who looks like him." The paramedics loaded Hawk into the ambulance. Before they closed the doors, Hawk pulled the oxygen mask down slightly and looked at Sienna. "Thank you," he mouthed. She nodded. The ambulance doors shut, and the vehicle pulled into the night. Cole stood for a moment, watching it vanish. Then he turned back to Sienna. "You got kids?" The question caught her off guard. "Yeah, a daughter, Maya. She's 6. What's your situation? Are you working?" Sienna hesitated. She didn't know this man, but something about how he asked gentle, genuine made her answer. 2 jobs. We're managing." Cole looked down at her shoes, the hole in the left sole, her worn jeans, the exhaustion written across her face. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I bet." He pulled out his wallet. It was thick with cash. He started counting bills. "Let me give you something for the aspirin. For your time. For what you did." Sienna stepped back. "No, please." "I said no." Her voice was firm. "I didn't do it for money." Cole stopped. He stared at her for a long moment. "Then why?" "Because he needed help. That's it." Cole slowly put his wallet away. He studied her face like he was trying to memorize it. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card, the same one he'd shown her before. Plain white. Phone number. Crown with wings logo. "Hawk's going to want to thank you himself," Cole said. "Tomorrow afternoon, please call this number." Sienna took the card, planning to toss it the moment she got home. "I'll think about it." "Please," Cole said again. There was something almost desperate in his voice. "Just call. That's all I'm asking." She nodded, slipping the card into her pocket. Cole got on his motorcycle. Before he rode off, he looked back at her one more time. "You're a good person, Sienna Clark. Don't ever let anyone tell you differently." Then he was gone. Sienna stood alone in the gas station lot. The attendant had gone back inside. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Everything felt surreal, like she'd just stepped from a dream. She started walking home, 2 miles in the dark with $1.50 in her pocket. Her mind raced the entire way. What had just happened? Who was Hawk? Why did Cole look at her like she'd done something extraordinary? All she'd done was help someone. But the way they reacted it was like nobody had ever helped them before. She thought about the attendant's warning. Those guys mean nothing but trouble. She thought about the trucker who told her to walk away. Maybe they were right. Maybe she just made a huge mistake. Maybe tomorrow she'd wake up and regret everything. But she couldn't shake the image of Hawk lying on that pavement. His chest not moving, his face turning gray. If she'd walked away, he'd be dead. That was the truth. And she didn't know how to regret saving someone's life. By the time she got home, it was nearly 1 a.m. Her neighbor, Mrs. Lane, an older woman who watched Maya when Sienna worked late, was asleep on the couch with Maya curled up beside her. Sienna gently shook Mrs. Lane awake. "I'm home. Thank you so much." Mrs. Lane nodded groggily and shuffled out. Sienna carefully lifted Maya and carried her to bed. Maya stirred slightly. "Mommy." "Shh. Go back to sleep, baby. I love you, Mommy. I love you too." Sienna tucked the blanket around her daughter and kissed her forehead. Then she walked back to the kitchen and sat at the small table. She pulled the business card from her pocket and stared at it. The crown with Wings logo glinted under the dim overhead light. She turned it over. Nothing on the back, just a phone number. Who were these people? She looked at the $1.50 sitting on the table. Tomorrow, Maya would wake and ask for breakfast, and Sienna would have to tell her they'd have crackers and the last banana, nothing else, because she'd spent her last $8 on a stranger. She pulled out her journal, a small notebook she kept by the window. Every night, no matter how hard things were, she wrote 3 grateful things, something her grandmother taught her. She opened to a blank page and wrote, 1. Maya is healthy. 2. I helped someone tonight. 3. Tomorrow is a new day. She closed the journal and looked at the business card again. She set it on the nightstand beside her bed. Then, she lay down, exhausted, and closed her eyes. She had no idea what tomorrow would bring. She had no idea that across town in a hospital room, Hawk was telling Cole to gather everyone. She had no idea her name was being spoken in rooms she'd never seen by people she'd never met. She had no idea her life was about to change in ways she couldn't imagine. All she knew was that she'd done the right thing, and sometimes that's all you can do, even when it costs everything. Sienna's alarm buzzed at 5 a.m., just like always. She dragged herself from bed, her body aching from the long day before. She walked into the kitchen and opened the cabinet. 1 banana, a handful of crackers, that was it. She split the banana in half, arranged the crackers on a plate, and poured a glass of water. Maya came padding out in her pajamas, rubbing her eyes. "Morning, Mommy. What's for breakfast?" "A special breakfast today, baby." Sienna forced a smile. "Banana and crackers. Your favorite." Maya didn't complain. She never did. She climbed into her chair and started eating. Sienna didn't make anything for herself. There wasn't enough. She sat across from Maya, watching her eat, trying not to think about how empty the cabinets were, trying not to think about the $8 she'd spent last night. Then came a knock at the door. Sienna frowned. It was barely 7 a.m. Who would be knocking this early? She opened the door. Mrs. Johnson stood there, her neighbor, a black woman in her 60s who'd lived on this street for 30 years. She had her arms crossed and a deep frown on her face. "Sienna, baby," Mrs. Johnson said, her voice tight. "We need to talk." "Good morning, Mrs. Johnson. Is everything okay?" Mrs. Johnson stepped closer and lowered her voice. "I heard you helped one of those biker thugs last night. one of those Hell's Angels. Sienna's stomach dropped. How did she know? He was having a heart attack, Mrs. Johnson. I had to. Child, those Hell's Angels are criminals. Mrs. Johnson cut her off. Drugs, violence, all kinds of mess. What were you thinking? You got Maya to think about. He was a human being who needed help, Sienna said, her voice steady but quiet. That's all I saw. Mrs. Johnson shook her head, disappointment written all over her face. You're too kind for your own good, Sienna. That kindness is going to get you hurt one day. Mark my words. She turned and walked back to her apartment, leaving Sienna standing in the doorway. Sienna closed the door slowly and leaned against it. Her hands were shaking. Had she made a mistake? She looked at Maya, still eating her crackers, completely unaware of the conversation that had just happened. Sienna forced herself to breathe. Finish up, baby. Time to get ready for school. At the laundromat, Sienna folded clothes on autopilot. Her mind kept replaying Mrs. Johnson's words. That kindness is going to get you hurt. Linda, her co-worker, noticed. She walked over and sat beside Sienna. You okay, honey? You look like you didn't sleep. Sienna hesitated, then told her everything. The gas station, the biker, the heart attack, using her last $8. Linda's eyes went wide. You helped a Hell's Angel. Girl, you're braver than me. Or stupider, Sienna muttered. According to Mrs. Johnson, Linda reached over and squeezed her hand. Baby, you did what your heart told you to do. Don't let anyone make you feel bad about that. But what if she's right? What if I brought trouble into my life? Linda looked her in the eye. You saved a man's life, Sienna. That's never the wrong thing to do. Sienna wanted to believe her, but doubt gnawed at her. During her break, she pulled out the business card. She stared at the Crown with Wings logo, turning it over in her fingers. She pulled out her phone and typed a text message to the number on the card. Hi, this is Sienna Clark. Cole gave me this number. She hit send before she could change her mind. Within seconds, her phone rang. She stared at the screen. Unknown number. She let it go to voicemail. A minute later, she listened to the message. Sienna, it's Cole. Hawk wants to meet you today. Can you come to Murphy's Diner on 5th Street at 3 p.m.? It's important. Please. Sienna's heart pounded. Linda leaned over. What did they say? They want to meet me this afternoon. Then go, Linda said. What's the worst that could happen? Free coffee. Sienna tried to smile, but her stomach was in knots. She was off work at 2 p.m. She could make it to the diner by 3. But what would people think? What would Mrs. Johnson say if she found out? What if this really was a mistake? As she left the laundromat that afternoon, she noticed something. 2 motorcycles parked across the street. 2 men in vests watching. When she looked at them, they nodded respectfully. Then they rode off. Sienna stood on the sidewalk, her heart racing. What had she walked into? And more importantly, could she walk back out? Sienna took the bus to 5th Street. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. As the bus turned the corner, she saw them, motorcycles. Dozens of them parked in perfect rows outside Murphy's Diner, chrome gleaming in the afternoon sun. Her stomach dropped. The bus stopped. Sienna almost stayed in her seat, but something made her stand and walk toward that diner. Bikers lined the sidewalk. Big men with tattoos and gray beards. Women too, arms crossed, standing tall. All wearing vests with patches. They weren't loud. They weren't threatening. They were waiting. As Sienna walked past, each one nodded to her. One older man tipped his cap. Sienna's heart pounded. What did that mean? She reached the door, took a breath, and walked inside. Every booth and table was filled with bikers. The diner was dead silent. Every single person turned and looked at her. Cole appeared from the back, smiling. Sienna, thank you for coming. Hawk's waiting. As they walked through the diner, something incredible happened. The bikers stood up, one by one. As she passed, they rose to their feet like a wave moving through the room. Sienna had no idea what it meant, but it felt sacred. Cole led her to a corner booth. Hawk sat there, looking better than last night. When he saw her, he stood slowly, wincing. "Sienna Clark, please sit." She slid into the booth. Hawk studied her. "How are you feeling?" "I'm fine. How are you?" "Doctor said if you hadn't acted fast, I'd be dead. Heart attack." "I'm just glad you're okay." Hawk leaned forward. "Cole told me everything. You wouldn't take money. You've got a daughter, 2 jobs. You used your last $8 to save my life." Sienna shifted uncomfortably. "It wasn't about money. I know. That's why I wanted to meet you." He pulled out a photograph and slid it across the table. A younger Hawk stood beside a woman. Between them was a little girl, maybe 7, with bright eyes and a huge smile. "That's my daughter," Hawk said quietly. "Her name was Lily." "Was?" "Leukemia. She was 7. We couldn't afford treatments fast enough. By the time we got the money, it was too late." Sienna's throat tightened. "I'm so sorry." Hawk's jaw tightened. "After she died, I made a promise. Anyone who shows real kindness, especially when they've got nothing, I help them. It's what Lily would have wanted." Sienna didn't know what to say. Hawk looked her in the eye. "Tomorrow morning, something's going to happen. Don't be scared. Just trust me." "What do you mean?" Hawk smiled. "You'll see." He stood, shook her hand, left cash on the table, and walked out with Cole. Sienna sat alone, surrounded by silent bikers, completely lost. An older biker leaned over. "You did good, miss. Real good." She had no idea what he meant. Back on Sienna Street, the neighborhood buzzed with talk. Mrs. Johnson stood on her porch with Mr. Rodriguez, a man in his 40s, from 3 doors down. "That girl, Sienna, is mixed up with those bikers now," Mrs. Johnson said. "I told her no good would come of it." Mr. Rodriguez frowned. "Hell's angels on our street. We got to do something." A young mother overheard. "I'm keeping my kids inside tomorrow." Word spread fast. By dinner time, the whole block was on edge. Parents warned their children. Curtains stayed drawn. Doors stayed locked. No one knew what was coming, but everyone was afraid. And Sienna, she rode the bus home with a pit in her stomach, wondering if she'd just made the biggest mistake of her life. Tomorrow would tell her the answer. Sienna woke to a sound like thunder. Deep, rumbling, shaking the windows. Engines. She rushed to the window and looked out. Her street was lined with motorcycles, hundreds of them, chrome gleaming, black vests. Bikers standing in perfect formation. "Oh my God," she whispered. Maya ran in. "Mommy, why are there so many motorcycles?" Sienna had no answer. She threw on clothes and rushed outside with Maya clinging to her hand. The entire neighborhood had come out. But they weren't curious. They were terrified. Windows slammed shut, doors locked, parents pulled children inside. Mrs. Johnson stood on her porch with her phone. "Yes, police, there's a gang on our street." Mr. Rodriguez ran towards Sienna, face red with anger. "Sienna, what did you do? Why are they here? You brought a gang to our street. Our kids live here." Other neighbors gathered, voices rising. "What were you thinking?" "I told you," Mrs. Johnson shouted. "I warned you." The crowd pressed closer. Angry faces, pointing fingers. Maya started crying. "Mommy, I'm scared." Sienna pulled her close, hands shaking. "It's okay, baby." Whine. But she didn't know if it was. Cole stepped forward, hands raised. "Folks, we're not here to cause trouble." "Then why are you here?" Mr. Rodriguez shouted. "We're here to help one of your own. Sienna saved a life 2 nights ago. Now we're here to save hers." Silence. A trailer truck pulled up. Bikers started unloading boxes. Cole turned to the crowd. "My name is Cole. I'm a volunteer with Lily's Legacy, a non-profit that helps struggling families." "Non-profit?" someone muttered, skeptical. "Hawk, the man Sienna saved, is our founder. He started Lily's Legacy after his daughter died of leukemia. We've helped over 3,000 families in 20 years. We raise money, build homes, and pay medical bills." Mr. Rodriguez's face changed. "Wait, Lily's Legacy? You helped my cousin in Detroit. Miguel Rodriguez, veteran with PTSD. You paid for his therapy." Cole nodded. A woman gasped. You paid for my son's heart surgery 2 years ago. Another voice. You saved my grandmother's house from foreclosure. The atmosphere shifted. Fear turned to understanding. Mrs. Johnson's hand covered her mouth. Lord, we judged you all wrong. Hawk stepped out of the truck, moving slowly. The crowd parted as he walked toward Sienna. He turned to face the neighbors. I get it, Hawk said. You saw the jackets, the bikes, the tattoos. You got scared. That's human. He pointed to Sienna. But this woman didn't see any of that. She saw a man dying and used her last $8, her daughter's breakfast money, to save my life. Complete silence. She didn't know who I was. Didn't care. She just saw a human being who needed help. That's the world I'm trying to build, where people see people, not stereotypes. Mr. Williams, an elderly black man who'd lived here 40 years, stepped forward with wet eyes. I judged you by your jacket, not your heart. I was wrong. I'm sorry. He extended his hand. Hawk shook it. We all make mistakes, sir. One by one, neighbors approached, apologizing, thanking, shaking hands. Mr. Rodriguez walked to Sienna. I'm sorry, I yelled. You were braver than all of us. Sienna couldn't speak. Hawk turned to her. You gave me a second chance. Let me give you one. He handed her an envelope. Inside a check for $25,000. Sienna stared, unable to process it. For rent, medical bills, whatever you need, Hawk said. There was more. A letter on official letterhead. Lily's Legacy offers you community outreach coordinator. Salary, $52,000 yearly. Full benefits, health insurance. Start in 2 weeks. Sienna's knees buckled. She dropped to the ground, sobbing. Maya knelt beside her. Mommy, why are you crying? Happy tears, baby. The neighbors erupted in applause. Some cried too. Engines revved. A thunderous celebration echoing down the street. Mrs. Johnson pulled Sienna into a hug. Baby, you showed us how to be better. I'm so sorry. Hawk knelt beside Sienna, wincing. One more thing. He pulled out a car key. We bought your car from Impound, fully repaired. It's around the corner. Sienna looked up, face streaked with tears. Why? Why all this? Hawk's eyes glistened. 20 years ago, my daughter died because we didn't have enough money. I swore I'd never let that happen to another family. You saved my life with your last dollars. Didn't hesitate. Didn't ask for anything. That's who the world needs. That's who I need. I'm nobody special. You're wrong. You're exactly who we've been looking for. Cole stepped forward. There's more. Come. He led her to the trailer. Inside furniture, a bed for Maya, groceries, toys, school supplies, clothes. Sienna laughed through tears, disbelief and joy mixing. This is too much. It's not enough, Hawk said, but it's a start. Bikers began unloading. The neighbors, terrified an hour ago, stepped forward to help. Mr. Rodriguez grabbed a box. Where do you want this? Mrs. Johnson directed traffic. Careful with that bed. The young mother who'd locked her kids inside now had them helping carry toys. The entire street came together. Fear and prejudice transformed into community and love. Hawk stood beside Sienna. Tomorrow we start planning the community center right here. Community center? Clark House, named after you. Sienna shook her head, crying. You can't. I can. And I am. Maya tugged her hand. Mommy, they brought me a bike. Sienna looked at her daughter's face. Pure joy, no fear. And something inside her broke open. For the first time in years, she felt real hope. Thank you, she whispered to Hawk. You already thanked me, Hawk said. You saw me. Not the vest, not the tattoos, just me. That's all I needed. By noon, Sienna's apartment looked completely different. The old sagging couch was gone, replaced by a sturdy new one with soft cushions. The wobbly kitchen table, now a solid wooden dining set with 4 matching chairs. Maya's mattress on the floor, a real bed with a frame, fresh sheets and pillows. Bikers moved furniture in while neighbors helped unpack boxes. Mr. Rodriguez assembled Maya's new bed. Mrs. Johnson organized the kitchen cabinets with new plates and glasses. Maya ran from room to room, eyes wide with wonder. Mommy, Look, I have a real desk and books and toys. Sienna stood in the middle of it all, overwhelmed. Hawk sat down on the new couch and patted the spot beside him. Sit. Let's talk. Sienna sat, still, in shock. I want to explain the job, Hawk said. What we'd need from you. I'll do anything, Sienna said. I just want to help. Hawk smiled. We get hundreds of requests every month. Single moms, veterans, families who can't afford medical care. I need someone who understands struggle. Who can look someone in the eye and see their heart. That's me. I know. That's why you're hired. He pulled out a folder with blueprints inside. But there's more. I want to open a community center right here in this neighborhood. Sienna's eyes widened as she looked at the drawings. Here? Why not? This is where people need it most. Job training, food bank, after-school programs for kids like Maya, a medical clinic. That's incredible. Hawk pointed to the top of the blueprint. 2 words, Clark House. We're naming it after you. Sienna shook her head. You can't do that. I didn't do anything special. Hawk looked her in the eye. You saved my life with your last $8. That's the definition of special. Tears filled Sienna's eyes again. Your job is to find people who need help, Hawk continued. You'll visit families, review applications, connect them with resources. Everything you went through, that pain you felt trying to make ends meet, that's your superpower now. Because you know exactly what they're going through. Sienna nodded, wiping her eyes. When do I start? 2 weeks. That gives you time to quit your other jobs and settle in. Hawk pulled out a benefits packet. Health insurance starts on day 1. Covers everything, including Maya's asthma medication. Completely. Sienna's breath caught. Completely? Completely. No copays, no deductibles. You'll never have to choose between her inhaler and groceries again. She broke down, sobbing. Hawk waited patiently until she could breathe again. There's one more thing, he said. He pulled out a vest. Not a Hell's Angels vest, but a volunteer vest for Lily's legacy. The crown with wings embroidered on the back. You're one of us now. Family. Sienna took the vest with shaking hands. She put it on and looked in the mirror hanging on the wall. She barely recognized herself. But in a good way. Your first job, Hawk said. Find someone in this neighborhood who needs help. Use those same instincts that saved me. Then we'll help them together. Sienna thought for only a second. Mrs. Patterson, 3 doors down. She's 80. Can't afford her heart medication. I've seen her cutting pills in half to make them last. Hawk smiled. Then let's go. They walked to Mrs. Patterson's apartment. Sienna, Hawk, and Cole. Sienna knocked. Mrs. Patterson opened the door slowly, surprised to see people on her doorstep. Sienna? What's going on, dear? Mrs. Patterson, I'd like you to meet some friends. We're here to help. They sat in Mrs. Patterson's small living room. Hawk explained Lily's legacy, while the elderly woman listened, tears forming in her eyes. Ma'am, what do you need most right now? Hawk asked. Mrs. Patterson's voice shook. My heart medication. I can't afford it anymore. I've been cutting the pills in half, but I'm almost out. Hawk pulled out his phone and made a call. We'll have your prescription filled and delivered today. Full 3-month supply. No cost to you. Mrs. Patterson grabbed Sienna's hand. You did this for me? We did this, Sienna said. Together. Mrs. Patterson wept. As they left, Sienna looked back at the elderly woman's grateful face. This is the best job I'll ever have, she said to Hawk. I know, Hawk replied, because you understand what it means to need help, and now you get to be the person who shows up. They walked back to Sienna's apartment, where the celebration continued. Neighbors laughed. Bikers shared stories. Maya played with her new toys. And for the first time in 3 years, Sienna Clark didn't worry about tomorrow, because tomorrow was going to be okay. Actually, it was going to be better than okay. It was going to be beautiful. 6 months later, everything had changed. But the change didn't happen overnight, and it didn't happen smoothly. The day after the bikers came, someone posted a video online. Sienna standing in her street, surrounded by 100 Hells Angels motorcycles. The footage went viral. The comments came fast. She's glorifying gang culture. Hell's angels are criminals. Don't be fooled. This is staged. No way this is real. Sienna saw them. Every single one. They hurt. Linda called her. Ignore them, honey. They don't know the truth. But the negative comments kept coming for weeks. Then something shifted. Families Lily's legacy had helped started sharing their own stories. Videos, posts, testimonials. A veteran in Ohio. They gave me housing when I had nothing. A single mother in Pennsylvania. They paid for my daughter's surgery. She's alive because of them. An elderly man in Michigan. They saved my home. The comments changed. I was wrong about bikers. This is what real charity looks like. Faith in humanity restored. Within a month, the hashtag Lily's legacy was trending. Asterisk, asterisk, month 1, asterisk, asterisk. Sienna sat at her new desk in the Lily's legacy office. A nameplate in front of her read, Sienna Clark, Community Outreach Coordinator. She reviewed applications, made phone calls, visited families. Maya thrived in her new school. Her inhaler sat on the counter, always full, always accessible. No more cutting corners, no more fear. Asterisk, asterisk, month 2, asterisk, asterisk. A vacant lot in Sienna's neighborhood became a construction site. Clark House was rising from the ground. At the groundbreaking ceremony, Sienna stood with a shovel, surrounded by bikers and neighbors. Local news cameras filmed everything. The reporter asked, "How does it feel to have a community center named after you?" Sienna smiled. "It's not about me. It's about what happens when people choose kindness over fear." Asterisk, asterisk. Month 3, asterisk, asterisk. Sienna met Marcus, a young black veteran, 32 years old, living in his car. She sat with him in a coffee shop. "Tell me what you need." A place to sleep. A job. A reason to keep going. Within a week, Lily's legacy placed him in transitional housing and enrolled him in a job training program. 3 months later, Marcus worked at a local factory. He had his own apartment, a paycheck, hope. He came back to thank Sienna, shaking her hand with tears in his eyes. "You gave me a second chance." "No," Sienna said. "You gave yourself a second chance. I just opened the door." Asterisk, asterisk. Month 4, asterisk, asterisk. Clark House opened. The ribbon-cutting ceremony drew hundreds of people. Sienna and Maya cut the ribbon together, both laughing. Inside, the building buzzed with life. A job training center, a food bank, an after-school program, a medical clinic offering free checkups. On opening day, 43 people came through the doors seeking help. All 43 left with something they needed. Asterisk, asterisk. Month 5, asterisk, asterisk. Testimonials poured in. Rosa, a Latina mother of 3. Lily's legacy paid for my daughter's surgery. Without them, I would have lost her. Mr. Williams, the elderly man who'd apologized to Hawk on Sienna's street. They paid my property taxes. I get to keep my home because of them. A teenage girl, 16, with dreams of college. The after-school program helped me get a scholarship. I'm going to study medicine. Asterisk, asterisk, month 6, asterisk, asterisk. Sienna now led a team of 5 coordinators, each one a person she'd helped first, now paying it forward. Lily's legacy expanded to 3 neighboring towns, each location modeled after Clark House. Hawk recovered fully. He spent his days visiting the centers, meeting families, shaking hands. He told Sienna one afternoon, "You know what Lily would say if she could see this." "What?" She'd say, "Daddy, you did good." Documentary filmmakers came to interview Sienna. They wanted to tell her story. She sat in front of the camera and said something simple. "A year ago, I had $8 and a choice. Help a stranger or feed my daughter breakfast. I chose to help, and that choice saved both of us." The short film premiered online. Within a week, 5 million views. One day, Sienna returned to the gas station where it all started. She walked inside and asked the manager for permission to place a small plaque on the wall outside. He agreed. The plaque read, "Here, a small act of kindness changed everything. Lily's legacy, The gas station attendant, the one who told her to leave Hawk alone, saw her and walked over. "I remember you," he said quietly. "I told you not to help him." Sienna nodded. "I was wrong," he said. "I've been following your story, what you built. I'm sorry." Sienna smiled. "We all learn. That's what matters." She walked out of that gas station for the second time. But this time, everything was different. This time, she wasn't alone. She had a family now, a community, a purpose. And it all started with $8 and a choice. 1 year after that night at the gas station, Clark House hosted an anniversary celebration. The building overflowed with people, families who'd been helped, bikers who'd volunteered, neighbors who'd learned to see past their prejudices. Balloons hung from the ceiling, a banner stretched across the wall, 1 year of kindness. Sienna stood at a small podium, looking out at the crowd. Maya sat in the front row, beaming. Sienna cleared her throat. "A year ago I spent my last $8 on a stranger. I didn't know who he was, didn't care. He needed help, that's it." The room applauded. "I was scared," Sienna continued. "People told me I was making a mistake, that I was bringing trouble into my life, and for a moment I believed them." She looked at Hawk, standing in the back with his arms crossed and a proud smile on his face. "But what I learned is this: kindness is never a mistake, even when it costs you everything, especially then." More applause. Some people wiped their eyes. After the speech, a young woman approached Sienna. She was white, early 20s, with nervous eyes. "Hi," the woman said. "My name is Emily. I don't know if you remember, but you helped my mom 6 months ago. She had cancer, couldn't afford treatment." Sienna searched her memory. "Mrs. Lawson?" Emily nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. "She's in remission. The doctors said it's a miracle, but it wasn't a miracle. It was you. It was Lily's legacy." They hugged tightly, both crying. Mrs. Johnson walked over, now a regular volunteer at Clark House. She pulled Sienna aside. "Baby, I need to say something." "What is it, Mrs. Johnson?" "I'm sorry for what I said that morning, for judging you, for judging them." She gestured toward the bikers scattered throughout the room. "You taught this old woman that it's never too late to change." Sienna squeezed her hand. "You were just trying to protect me, I understand. Still, I was wrong. And I'm grateful you didn't listen to me." That evening, after the celebration ended, Sienna walked home. She still walked everywhere. Even though her car was fixed, she liked the quiet, the time to think. As she passed a different gas station, she saw a young man sitting on the curb. Latino, maybe 22, head in his hands. Sienna stopped. "Hey, you okay?" The young man looked up, eyes red. "My car broke down. I don't have money for a tow. I'm supposed to pick up my son from daycare in 20 minutes. Sienna opened her purse and pulled out $50. She handed it to him. "What? No, I can't." "Yes, you can," Sienna said. "Get your car towed. Get your son." The young man stared at the money like it was a miracle. "I don't even know you." "You don't have to." Sienna pulled out a Lily's Legacy card and handed it to him. "When you're back on your feet, help someone else. Pass it on. And if you ever need more help, call that number." Tears streamed down his face. "Thank you. I won't forget this." Sienna smiled. "I know you won't." She walked away, her heart full. A year ago, she'd been the one with nothing, the one who needed help. Now she was the one giving it. The cycle continued. Kindness creates more kindness. And somewhere, Sienna knew Lily was watching, smiling, proud. Sienna's story started with $8 and a choice. She could have walked away. She could have listened to the fear. But she didn't. She saw a human being who needed help. And she helped. That one choice changed everything. Here's my question for you. Who can you help today? Who needs your $8? Your time, your kindness? And who have you judged unfairly? What person have you walked past because of how they looked? Sienna looked past the leather vest and tattoos. She saw a person, not a stereotype. How many times have we judged too quickly? If this story moved you, don't just watch, act. Help someone this week. Leave a comment. Tell me about a time kindness changed your life. If you believe in second chances and communities lifting each other up, hit that like button, subscribe, share this story, because the more people who see this, the more kindness spreads. Now go be someone's Sienna.